Do you think ghosts exist? Of course not. I knew you didn't. It is impossible to make good movies or TV shows when there's noise around. The scary person who scared people had his own secret. Alfred Hitchcock bought a house in 1942 that had a strange feature, an upstairs room that was completely hidden. There was more to this than just storage. The office was fully functional and had wiring for a bathroom. For a bathroom. No one who came would know it was there. This is where the famous director planned some of his most famous scares. The secret room was still there when the house sold for $8.81 million in 2023. What they found in their will always bother you. It was August 13th, 1899, when Alfred Hitchcock was born. It's on top of a small store in Leytonstone, Essex. The shop was run by his dad. His mother was very strict and Catholic at home. Alfred was the third child and youngest member of the family. He learned early on to be afraid. When he was 5, his dad gave him a note and told him to go to the police station. He was locked up for a short time by the cops. They told him this is what we do to bad boys. He would always remember that moment. He lived his whole life afraid of cops, and that fear showed up in his movies. He was quiet, good, and always by himself as a child. His dad called him "my little lamb without a spot" because he never had a friend to play with. Alfred started at St. Ignatius College when he was 11 years old. It is a Jesuit school that is known for having strict rules. Penalties weren't given at random. They were set to happen at the end of the day, which made students nervous for hours before the strike. Hitchcock said this is where he learned about fear, power, and tension. He saw the 2 tall towers of St. Ignatius Church every day. Years later, those towers gave him ideas for the Dreamy Tower in his movie Vertigo. They taught him everything he knew about fear and suspense, he once said. But he couldn't get rid of his Catholic guilt. It changed his ideas about what was right and wrong and what justice should be. He lost his father when he was 15 years old. The family was very sad about the loss. Alfred had to quit school and get a job. He did, however, start going to an engineering school in Poplar at night a year before, learning about sound, electricity, and motors. Henley's Telegraph and Cable Company hired him as a technical worker for only 15 shillings a week. It wasn't exciting, but it was the first step. He designed ads for the company as part of his job. That's where he first learned how to use pictures to talk. As the night went on, he kept learning. He added painting, history, economics, and politics to his list. He didn't fight. By 1917, when he was 18, he could only do work at a desk. He joined a group of cadets, but most of them laughed at how his leg wraps got lost. Hitchcock was busy with something else while other people were getting their lives back on track after the war. He couldn't stop going to the shows. He saw as many movies as he could every weekend, but he didn't watch like everyone else. He looked at each shot, cut, and moved very carefully. Everything changed for him when he saw German expressionist movies. He saw dark spots, tense areas, and odd angles. Even American film magazines, he read all of them. He had a filmmaker's eye by 1920, even though he had never worked on a movie set. He knew how to hit hard. And what helped you remember a scene? He made his move when he was 21 years old in 1920. At Lasky Studios in Islington, he went in with a portfolio of title card drawings for a movie called The Sorrows of Satan. The company told him that they were making a different movie. He made a new set at home and then came back. They hired him. His first job was part-time while he still worked at Henley's. He even agreed to do something with his advertising boss. He would split his movie pay with Henley if he could use his tools after work. By 1921, Hitchcock worked at the studio full-time. Title cards for movies like The Great Day and Dangerous Lies were made by him. Hitchcock stayed on when the company cut back on staff. He began making sets and writing plays. His work on 6 movies for Gainsborough Pictures in 1922 was very good. It was quick and hard to learn. He tried to make his first movie that same year. It was called Number 13 and was about poor people who lived in a London building. He started out with some money from his uncle, but it ran out quickly. Claire Great, an actress, had so much faith in him that she gave him her savings to keep the business going. That wasn't enough, though. The movie stopped after only 2 reels, which was about 25 minutes. The video stopped working. It was never seen again. After that, Hitchcock didn't talk about it much. He just said it was chastening. Things changed in 1925. The Pleasure Garden was directed by Hitchcock and was filmed in Germany and Italy. He had trouble with money and got stuck in Munich until the British government helped him and his crew get out. He passed out on a cable car in the Alps, but the movie was already over. It showed how much he loved strong lighting, building drama, and telling stories visually. It was easy to see how European movies had an effect. Even though it didn't come out until 1927, it was the real start. But The Lodger, a story set in London in the fog of 1927, was his real big break. It was based on Jack the Ripper in Hitchcock's own youth in the East End and was about a mysterious man who was thought to be a killer. The studio didn't like it. They put it away because they thought it was too hard to understand. But director Michael Balkin pushed for Hitchcock to be shown and believed in it. The people who saw it loved it. As the lodger paced above in one scene, which was filmed through a glass floor, critics were amazed by the new method. Also, Hitchcock made his first appearance in that movie. He would do this in almost all of his movies after that. It was a hit when The Lodger opened in February 1927. Hitchcock had shown up. The sound then came. Blackmail was made by Hitchcock in 1929. At first, it was a silent movie, but the studio told him to add music in the middle. She spoke with a strong Czech accent. Hitchcock thought of a plan. He did the dance moves while another woman read the lines off screen. It was an early form of recording. One scene stood out. An angry woman who had just stabbed a man sat at the breakfast table. A friend kept telling me, "Knife, knife." He turned up the sound of that one word and turned down the sound of everything else. It was the first time sound was used to show how badly someone was hurting inside. It made more than £125,000, but it cost £25,000 to make. This was a difficult technical task that Hitchcock turned into a gem, and the first sound hit in British movies. On December 2, 1926, Alfred Hitchcock's life started to change for the better. The wedding took place in South Kensington, London on that day. It wasn't just a wedding. The two of them went on to work together on some of the best movies ever. Alma was more than just his wife. Since she was 16, she had worked in movies. She knew everything about the business. She had been through job changes, tough studios, and a business dominated by men. Alma worked quietly in the background, editing, writing, and even finding small mistakes that Hitchcock missed, while Hitchcock became the public face of their movies. She was an important part of movies like The 39 Steps, Suspicions, and Shadow of a Doubt. She didn't need the money. She only wanted the work to be great. And Hitchcock put all of his trust in her. On July 7, 1928, only 2 years after they got married, their daughter Patricia was born. She spent her early life in a flat in London on Cromwell Road where she lived with her family. But her life wasn't like most. She had already been to some very fancy events when she was only 3 years old, like holding the train of a bride's dress at a VIP wedding. She was used to living that way. By the time she was 14, she was in a play on Broadway called Solitaire. In 1947, she graduated from high school in Los Angeles and went to London to study acting at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. Later, she was in 3 of her father's movies: Stage Fright, Strangers on a Train, and Psycho. She was also in a number of episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. She married Joseph E. O'Connell Jr. in 1952, and they had 3 children together. At that point, Hitchcock's name was more than just a movie brand. It had become a legend. But the world around Patricia was changing as she grew up. Europe was scared because war was about to start. Even Hitchcock knew it. And in 1939, he made a choice that changed his whole life. His new home is in Hollywood. He had already promised to make one more British movie, Jamaica, in 1938. But once that was done, he got on the RMS Queen Mary and went to America. When he got there, the American press already talked about him like he was famous. He met big names in the business and did interviews and magazine covers before he even started working there. The meeting that changed everything then took place. One of the biggest producers in Hollywood, David O. Selznick, gave him a 7-year deal. Hitchcock would make $40,000 a movie, which is about $890,000 today. It was just the right time. Europe was about to go to war, and Hitchcock had just moved to America to be safe financially and creatively. He was shocked by how different things were when he went to Los Angeles with his family. Hollywood had more cash, better tools, and faster ways to make movies. His mind could finally run wild now that he was in this place. Life magazine called him the best master of melodrama in the history of movies that same year. It was a big deal. He had done it, but not everything went well. It wasn't easy for him to work with Selznick. Hitchcock kept his cool and was quiet. Selznick was loud and showy. They fought over plots, changes, and who had the final say. No matter what, Hitchcock kept going. Alfred Hitchcock had no plans to take over Hollywood. He didn't even feel like he belonged when he got there in 1939. Things changed, though, on February 27, 1941. He got an Academy Award for Best Picture for his first movie in the United States, Rebecca. Except for Hitchcock, it was a big deal. He didn't win the Oscar. The movie did. John Ford won the award for Best Director. That was the start of a long, strange trend. He didn't win any awards, but his works did. What's the strange part? Hitchcock did not like Rebecca at all. He said it wasn't really his movie at one point. Why? Everything was run by producer David O. Selznick. In other words, he made Hitchcock follow the book word for word. That fight between the director and the producer was so annoying to Hitchcock that he didn't talk about the movie for years. Selznick got the award. People liked and didn't like Hitchcock. As the war in Europe got worse, Hitchcock began making one horror after another. He made 8 movies between 1940 and 1945. Foreign Correspondent was the second book, and it came out not long after Rebecca. It took a direct stance on the war, even before the United States joined. At the end of the movie, bombs went off in London, and the U.S. was asked to get involved. It cost $1,484,000. It cost $167 to make and was nominated for another Best Picture award. Hawthorne had 2 movies in the running for the top award in the same year. That didn't happen often. Then there was Doubt in 1941. It was the only acting award Joan Fontaine won in a Hitchcock movie. But Hitchcock's best was Shadow of a Doubt, which came out in 1943. He wrote it with Thornton Wilder to catch the feel of an American small town. Below that calm surface, there was a killer who was easy to see. During the war, these movies showed Hitchcock getting used to his new country. But his favorite topics like fear, guilt, and danger didn't change. After that, Rope came out in 1948. Hitchcock was eager to do something that no one else had done. It looked like there were no cuts in this movie. There were 10 shots and each one was about 10 minutes long. The movie looked like it was shot in one long take. That's all that film could hold. How did he hide the cuts? He moved the camera behind someone or into a piece of furniture, and that's where the next reel began. It was his first movie in color. To make it feel real, he had the sky outside the window change from afternoon to evening. It was important that everyone, including the walls, moved at the same time. It looked like a dance. Some folks thought it was only a trick, but later, reviewers saw it as a big change in the way movies were made. Rope had an impact on movies like Birdman in 1917. 34 Oscars were given to Hitchcock's movies between 1940 and 1949. 3 of them were for Best Director. Rebecca got 11, and Foreign Correspondent got 6. His second Best Director nomination came in 1945 for Lifeboat, a movie that never left a single boat. After that, Spellbound came out with Salvador Dali's strange dream scenes and got 6 more nods. Hirschhorn saw other people walk up to the stage, but his name was never called. After many years, the American Film Institute tried to make that right. They said Rebecca was one of the most exciting movies ever made. People thought Mrs. Danvers was one of the best bad guys in movie history, but Hitchcock found it hard to accept at the time. After that, Hitchcock changed everything when he used a TV camera in 1955. There was more to Alfred Hitchcock presence than just a TV show. Hitchcock became well known because of it. He always spoke about each event himself and had a straight face. Each show began with an outline of him, which was made with only 9 lines. That sketch became one of the most well-known pictures on TV. Behind the scenes, Hitchcock taught people like William Friedkin how to be directors. He also liked making fun of the donors. He joked one time that an execution would be late because there was only one electric chair. People in the room laughed. The donors felt bad, but they didn't back out. It was on for almost 10 years. Yeah. NBC gave him a longer show in 1962 called The Alfred Hitchcock Hour. In 1965, the last show aired. He was more than just a movie director by that point. His best years were the 1950s. Hitchcock made 11 movies between 1953 and 1960. He was finally free from Selznick's power this time. He worked with Grace Kelly on 3 hits in a row: Dial M for Murder, Rear Window, and To Catch a Thief. His work on Rear Window even got him another nod for Best Director. After that, Vertigo came out in 1958. At first it wasn't a favorite, but after a few years, sight and sound critics called it the best movie ever. And just when things looked bad, Hitchcock made North by Northwest in 1959. It made $4,056 in just 2 weeks, which is about $4.04 million today. It broke all kinds of records at Radio City Music Hall. Psycho was his last album of the decade. That movie was a big deal. People were scared. We're scared. It changed scary movies for good. It did better at the box office than any of his other movies. The shower scene is famous in movie history, but Hitchcock didn't do it by himself. 4 hits in a row: Rear Window, To Catch a Thief, The Trouble with Harry, and The Man Who Knew Too Much were all written by John Michael Hayes. The tone of those movies was lighter and funnier, but in interviews, Hitchcock played Hayes' part down. He called him a radio writer one time. Still, he kept working with stars like James Stewart, Cary Grant, and Grace Kelly that he knew he could trust. Grace especially became the Hitchcock blonde's face. She was beautiful, cold, and mysterious. Things didn't always go well behind the camera. Montgomery Clift used method acting on the show, I confess. Hitchcock didn't like it. He liked being exact. It's not improvisation. When the movie was over, you could feel the strain. Hitchcock is good in some ways, but not all of them. He really crossed the line sometimes, and it all began in 1961. Alfred Hitchcock saw Tippi Hedren in a TV ad and knew right away that she would be his next big star. Within a few weeks, she was bound by an exclusive 7-year deal that was very personal. What started out as casting quickly changed into something else. By 1962, when The Birds began filming, everyone on the set could feel it. Hitchcock wasn't just telling her what to do. He always had his eye on her.